even though nature is very like forgiving and very resilient and whatnot, I wouldn't want to see like what happens when like she just can't anymore. It's best to always offer tobacco before cutting down the tree because it just gives you a chance to ask forgiveness for the tree for cutting it down, and also letting the tree know that we're still going to take care of it even after we cut it down. We're going to take care of it like in basket form and in other uses and forms. So it's just our way to pay respect for what we're about to do with the tree. And it also helps to ensure a safe harvest as well. My name is Leandra Skenendor, and I'm an enrolled tribal citizen of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. And I also descend from the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation and Seminole and Creek Nation of Oklahoma. So my role in this is sharing and teaching how to make the baskets and how to work with the material and how to identify the black ash tree when harvesting. And I first became introduced to black ash baskets in 2020 officially was when I started to work with April, because that was where we applied for the Mentor Artist Fellowship Program with the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation. And April asked me to be her apprentice, and then she taught me how to make the baskets from start to finish, from going out into the swamp to log pounding, to processing the material, to cutting pieces, and then to making baskets and vessels that can be used to hold and carry in everyday life.
This is the yellow birch, and you can see there's more medicine growing on here. But they transition between hardwood forests and swamps. So when you find these, you're going to find ash trees. So all these trees will tell you what's nearby. So where you find these, you're going to find basswood. And where you find basswood, you're going to find white ash up the hill like this. Weenazik, we call yellow birch.
Sakoi, Ganyatagelu Niunget Sungwaihwene, Becky Webster Niunget Sot Slunige, Wagwaho ni Wigit Talode, Oniote Aga ni Wakahuanjot, Delunkawane ni Wigenyu. So I said, greetings, my friend. My name is Ganyatagel, which means snow scattered here and there. My English name is Becky Webster. I'm Wolf Clan, I'm Oneida, and I grew up near Duck Creek that runs through the Oneida Reservation. So I am the executive director of yawʌʌko. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that we formed just 3 years ago. And our goals for yawʌʌko is to create a space for people to come together to learn about caring for our seeds, planting, growing our foods, harvesting, preparing our foods, like cooking them, also making traditional tools and crafts that go along with caring for our foods.
I have been working with Becky and yawʌʌko for a few years. I live on the Oneida Reservation with my husband, and we also operate a small-scale farm. My 9-to-5 job is in the food sovereignty world, so I'm food sovereignty and all of the things that come with it, like 24/7.
I remember we went to a swamp that was just across the road from her house, just so we could kind of see like some of the logs that she harvested there, also what that like ecosystem looks like too. And so she was just kind of getting me like familiar with like what it looks like and everything. And then when we actually went to go get a log, we went to a different spot. She was kind of explaining more of like what to look for the tree. And then she took this one picture where I'm like standing next to the tree for the first time. And so she loves that picture. I love that picture because it was just like a really incredible start to something that became absolutely life-changing and really beautiful. So these are really beautiful growth rings. What we see right here is just where another branch was starting to grow in the tree. So as we log pound, once we get to this ring layer in the tree, that's where it'll start to get warped, and we might not be able to use this section for splints for basket making because it'll be too warped rather than like the long like straightness of the splints all around here. But otherwise, this is a really beautiful like ring display because all these rings are like thicker than a nickel. And so those can then be like split down in half to expose the satin, but still keep a lot of the thickness for baskets. And what you could even do is you could double split it, so then you have satin on both sides.
Oh.
And those are pieces that are used in the really like beautiful extravagant curls and baskets. Yeah, so this is a really beautiful, healthy tree.
So my intentions, I was really excited because I know I look up to Leandra in her basket making skills and her way with the black ash baskets. And one time she was talking about the baskets, and she held up one and she said, "I knew this basket when she was a log." And I said, I need to be able to be a part of that, to see the whole process from going into the woods to finding a tree, to ask that tree to give her her life so that we could turn her into baskets that would be around for our families for generations.
So when finding a black ash tree to harvest for making baskets, what we first look for is to make sure that it is a black ash tree. So some key indicators are exposed roots. We're also in a lowland swampland place. And we can also test the bark if we can't see the canopy, or if it's not a full canopy, or if we can't see the leaves up that tall. You can run your fingers down the trunk of the tree and it's not going to cut you like running it down like a white ash tree where the bark's more sharp. And then the bark also flakes off, so you can actually pull pieces off of it. And it's corky, which means that it's squishy. And it's also very light gray in color too. And yeah, those are some like key indicators if you're just looking at the tree itself. And then eventually you can go by other indicators in the surrounding area. Like Greg was talking about, looking for yellow birch is a tree that grows by black ash a lot. And so you'll find that like in the like upland area because we're in the lowland. But yeah, so that's just to confirm it's a black ash tree. And then to look for a basket making black ash tree, we want it to be nice and straight for at least 10 feet up. And 10 feet up means that we could get like 2 segments that are 5 foot in length, 3 segments that are 3 foot in length. Or if you like have the means to, you can just take the whole 10-foot chunk. And this one is beautifully straight up for a really long time. So it could easily be one of those trees that's like 10, 12 feet tall. And you could still use that to make those really, really long, beautiful splints. Yeah, it's basically just once you fell it and you cut off like the length segment you need or just what you're able to get off of it, then that kind of determines what kind of baskets you're able to make with it. So if it's 3 feet long, you could probably make like small, like hand bag baskets, small market baskets, and corn washing baskets for sure. Probably like mini pack baskets if you're wanting to do that. But something that's like this, like nice and tall and straight to use, can be used to make like so many pieces or so many different kinds of baskets. And we want it to be straight because if there is like a branch coming out or if there is like a gaping wound in it from like a tree falling into it or a lightning strike or something, it would compromise like the length of that splint, like the straightness and the length of the splint that could be used in making baskets. But yeah, and kind of once you learn how to identify and look for it, it becomes second nature, because now it's just like, well, how do you tell which one to use? And it's like, well, you just know by looking at it. Yeah, it is what it is. It's black ash because it is black ash. But yeah, this is what the tree looks like. And right now we're harvesting on the Lac du Flambeau Reservation, and this is one of the places here in Bad River where I'm able to get a lot of trees from. And the trees in Lac du Flambeau are like so healthy. Yeah, so if I do harvest, it's always up here in northern Wisconsin. And then I don't harvest in Oneida really, just because you kind of, at least for me right now, I want that like those areas to try to heal after the emerald ash borer coming in and everything. And also just to see if those little saplings can have a good chance for being future basket making trees for the future generations. But yeah, otherwise this is a really beautiful tree. Now when I show people how to identify black ash for basket making trees and doing the log harvesting, it's just like a really cool full circle moment, because I remember even on this trip when we were sitting at dinner, I was just kind of sitting there, and one, I was tired, but also I was reflecting. I was like, I can't believe I do this now. Like, I help bring groups of people out to look for basket making trees, and we like cut down the trees, and then those are soon going to be made into a bunch of really beautiful baskets and vessels that'll help add utility and beauty to people's lives.
Grounding, I think, is the word I would use. When I have shown up at other basket classes, somebody hands me black ash, or I have pounded before, but for the most part, the cutting and the harvesting is complete. And so having now participated in that, I think it just adds even more depth and connection to the basket that ends up coming home with me.
I tried to not get emotional with the other trees, but the first one was really hard. Like, you mentally prepare yourself for what's going to happen, and you know you're taking the life of this tree, even though you know what your intentions are going to be. That tree still died. So I think as it got a little easier as we went to the second tree and then the third tree, but it was still really hard to know that that tree isn't going to be in the forest anymore. That tree. Sections of that tree are coming home with us, and we're gonna take all of our logs with us back home to Oneida, where we're going to process that tree, and it's going to be dispersed into dozens of families.
Carrying it out was funny because I was in front and she was in back. And so she was like letting me kind of lead to get the log out of the swamp. And this is my first time ever being in like a place like that. And I was very used of being indoors before. And so going through that, it was just like a totally new world. But she teased when I was like trying to figure out how to like walk through a swamp. She's like, pick the path of least resistance. And I'm like, but there's like everything everywhere on the ground right now. But it was a lot of fun. So what I've learned so far is the emerald ash borer is this invasive insect that originates from Asia. And so it came over here on shipping crates, and this was in the early 2000s. But there's some people that think it might have been here like as early as the 90s. So over there, that's their main food source. And so once they got brought over here, they also saw ash trees. And so they just did what their little bug self knows how to do, which is just eat the food. And because there's no natural predators for that ash borer over here, it was able to kind of like wipe through like a pretty significant population in the early 2000s over in Michigan. And then it started to spread over into Wisconsin and then into Minnesota and down south as well. And then like over in the northeastern part of the country. And nowadays it's like even as far as like over in, I think, Washington State and Oregon.
Because of the emerald ash borer, it's scary to know that for generations upon generations that we've had these baskets and they were an integral part of our, cultural and daily lives. And to know that this emerald ash borer is threatening that, and it could potentially bring the end to the black ash baskets is scary. But then I look back at our ancestors and think of all of the things that they were threatened with. They were threatened with extinction multiple times. They were assimilated, they were removed, all of the things, and they survived. So I don't know what that will look like, but I know somehow, some way that the black ash trees are going to survive and come back and be available for future generations.
And so what it does is when the bug lays its eggs in the bark or underneath the bark, but then when the larvae like hatch and they start to grow, they like squiggle around underneath the bark and eat through like the cambium layer. But doing those like little squiggle movements that it does and eating it, that starts to kill the tree and it'll just like start to die off from that. The reason you can't use, or if the tree is like heavily infested and if it's like dead, then when you fell it and then like try to make baskets out of it, those rings start to like disintegrate below it. And so that's why you can't use it for a basket making tree, because they aren't able to stay like intact. They start to like milled together. And then April calls it, they become punky, where it's like you can't get a full piece off. It comes off in like shards when you're log pounding it. I've had other basket makers tell me that you can still use the rings underneath those eaten layers for basket pieces. It's just a lot of work to get through those like disintegrated layers. But if you're a basket maker too, like to me, that's like very worthwhile work, because this is a craft that you just want to keep with for the rest of your life. Even though there's like the threat of the emerald ash borer, that's why I think as basket makers, it's still part of our responsibilities to share and teach as much as we can. Because even if the tree needs to skip a couple generations, which in a tree's lifetime is like nothing. For our lifetime, it's a lot of time. But if it skips a generation or two, hopefully like all those teachings and stories can get picked up again, where they'll be able to kind of follow like the different processing steps and the basket weaving steps.